This policy issue that Mr. Descano was talking about, he says what he said to the voters when he was running for the job, that doesn't really count. I got an official policy. What I said to the voters, no, don't forget that. Frankly, that's what happens in a lot of politics. I actually think it should be just the opposite. Whatever you told the voters, if they elect you, you should do what you said. I think he's doing that. I think he's just trying to wiggle around it now. But here's the policy.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to America Wake. I'm Wilson. That was a heated exchange, and after watching it, I think Jim Jordan and his colleagues were asking questions that deserve clear answers. When public safety is on the line, prosecutors should be prepared to explain their decisions. That's exactly what this hearing was about. What stood out to me was the growing concern that some prosecutors are putting ideology ahead of accountability. Whether you agree with Jordan or not, the questions raised here are important because they directly affect the safety of local communities. Today, we're going to break down the biggest moments from this hearing, what Jim Jordan was trying to uncover, and why this debate is getting so much attention. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like the video, subscribe to America Wake, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest coverage. Now let's get into it.
The gentleman doesn't have any time to yield back. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to yield to
I yield it nonetheless.
I'm going to yield to the chairman here in a second, but I think this is actually a remarkable hearing, what I've witnessed today, both from the sheriff and the Commonwealth's attorney. The inability or the unwillingness to prosecute crimes that are committed in your jurisdiction, I think, is almost a fireable offense, and I hope that the good people of Virginia remove you from office. Criminals are back out on the streets in Fairfax County because you want to virtue signal public safety, and you're making communities less safe. In fact, we have a bill called Logan's Law. You would be a poster child, because I bet if we stacked up your plea deals and your drop charges against other real prosecutors in the country, what it would show is that you're actually operating like a public defender and not a prosecutor. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield you the balance of my time.
I appreciate the gentleman yielding. Mr. Attorney General, let me ask you a few things here. Well, first of all, in your distinguished career, Attorney General, I think you were in the Assembly before that, but before all that, you were a prosecutor yourself. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And is it a good thing if the law enforcement people aren't getting along with the prosecutor? I mean, normally it's better if they get along and they're working together to keep the bad guys off the street and protect the community.
No question. Right? It's a cooperative arrangement.
Yeah, and in your time as a prosecutor, I doubt, maybe you did, but I doubt it, your distinguished career, that you ever had your chief law enforcement in whatever jurisdiction you were prosecutor. I doubt if you ever had them say, it's shameful the way this prosecutor is not prosecuting. Did that ever happen to you, Mr. Attorney General?
No, we never had what happened with the Fairfax Police Union chief said. What bothers me about this case is the fact that this absolutely could have been prevented. Stephanie Minter should be alive right now, and she's not because Steve Descano's office chose to release him back in the public. No, that's never happened in my career.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen in most places where you got a prosecutor who works with law enforcement to keep the bad guys off the street. Now let's get back to this policy issue that Mr. Descano was talking about. He says what he said to the voters when he was running for the job, that doesn't really count. I got an official policy. What I said to the voters, no, don't forget that. Frankly, that's what happens in a lot of politics. I actually think it should be just the opposite. Whatever you told the voters, if they elect you, you should do what you said. I think he's doing that. I think he's just trying to wiggle around it now. But here's the policy. Consideration of, this is County of Fairfax Commonwealth Attorney Procedure Memorandum 12/15/2020 Policy Title Guidelines for Plea Bargaining, Charging Decisions, and Sentencing, authorizing signature Steve Descano. And here's what it says on point 14, Mr. Attorney General. Consideration of immigration consequences. Assistant Commonwealth attorneys shall consider. We all know we're in this business of writing laws. May and shall are two different words, right? Shall means you got to look at this stuff. Now, he puts a little other thing, shall consider immigration consequences where possible, where doing so accords with justice, all that stuff. But it's not a may, it's a shall. That is their policy. Do you agree with that, Mr. Attorney General?
That is their policy, yes, Mr. Chairman.
And do you believe that has impacted the decision to let these bad guys on the street who did terrible things? Again, Ms. Minter is beside you.
Just between 2022 and 2024, Mr. Descano dropped the charges on Mr. Jala of trespassing, malicious wounding, theft, petty larceny, trespassing, disorderly conduct, and malicious wounding.
That's like 7 crimes, right?
Correct.
Now, here's what I want to know. And maybe your office, Mr. Descano, is willing to give us this information. Because you said, oh, no, immigration status, my last time you said immigration status had no determination on the decision relative to Mr. Morales-Ortiz. I want to know in cases where it did. What were the cases where you changed the plea agreement or you changed the charging decision that were based on consideration of their immigration status? If you say this doesn't matter anymore, we took it down off the website, I don't really believe what I told the voters. If that's the case, I want to know, did you ever use immigration status as a reason to impact the sentence and the charging decision or a plea agreement?
Well, sir.
Can you get us that information? That's what I'm asking. Just get us that information. I want to know here are the cases where we took into account this individual's immigration status and we changed the charging decision. Can you give us those cases?
Sir, I don't have those cases with me. I'd love to talk to you about the policy
that. You don't
because
have
I
those
think
cases
it's
with
been.
you. Is it a significant number?
Well, sir, if I may dig into the policy, I think it'll be illustrative.
No, I asked you about the
illuminating.
cases. I want to know the number of times you took into their, because here's what everyone sees. You're trying to say it's not the case. Everyone sees you got an American citizen who does a crime. You got an illegal immigrant who does the exact same crime. Your policy seems to me says that this person will get a different sentence or a different charge, different plea agreement than the American citizen. And I want to know if that ever happened.
It absolutely says in the policy in black and white that an immigrant will not get a better outcome than a U.S. citizen. That is in the policy. That's later. You read one half sentence, sir. This is a 2-paragraph policy.
Well, here's what, again, let's go back to the website you took down.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, the gentleman's time has expired.
I think the gentleman.
Mr. Tiffany.
After watching the full hearing, I think Jim Jordan made several strong points. The biggest issue was accountability. Jordan wasn't making a complicated argument. He wanted to know whether decisions made by the Fairfax County Prosecutor's Office were contributing to repeat offenders getting back on the streets. That's a fair question, especially when public safety is involved. One of the most striking moments came when Virginia Attorney General Jason Miers explained how unusual it is for law enforcement and prosecutors to be at odds with each other. In most jurisdictions, police and prosecutors work together. When a police chief publicly criticizes a prosecutor's office and suggests a tragedy could have been prevented, that's something people should pay attention to. Jordan also focused heavily on the county policy that instructs prosecutors to consider immigration consequences when making charging and plea bargain decisions. His point was straightforward. If the policy says prosecutors shall consider immigration consequences, then immigration status is clearly part of the process. What stood out to me was that when Jordan asked for examples of cases where immigration status affected a charging decision or plea deal, there was no clear answer provided. Instead of getting specific examples, the conversation shifted back to explaining the policy itself. That is where Jordan's argument gained strength. He wasn't asking for theories. He was asking for evidence. How often was the policy used? Were outcomes ever changed because of immigration concerns? Those are reasonable oversight questions. I also think Jordan was right when he suggested that elected officials should be judged by what they tell voters. Campaign promises matter. If a candidate promotes certain policies and later implements them, the public has every right to ask whether those policies are working as intended. At the end of the day, this hearing was about more than one prosecutor's office. It was about transparency, accountability, and public trust in the justice system. Whether you agree with every criticism directed at Steve Descano or not, one thing is clear. The public deserves honest answers when questions are raised about public safety and prosecutorial decisions. For me, that was the key takeaway from this hearing. Jim Jordan kept pushing for specifics, and in many cases, those specifics never fully arrived. But that's my take. What do you think? Did Jim Jordan make a convincing case? Or do you think Fairfax County officials adequately defended their policies? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Thanks for watching America Wake. I'm Wilson, and I'll see you in the next one.